Chairman.
Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to respond to the points that have been made by a couple of members on the committee stages. In respect of the issue of military deaths, these issues were well canvassed at the Select Committee, as my colleague Jackie Dean noted. And the concern that have been expressed by members of the opposition is whether a coronial inquiry is a more appropriate mechanism for investigating a death where a person serving in the New Zealand Armed Forces is killed overseas. And I think the really important point in making a judgment about whether the investigation will be independent or not is the fact that the New Zealand Coronial Inquiry is going to be totally dependent on the information that is provided by the Defence Force. The idea that somehow if the Defence Force, and I'm not ill-disposed, my view is that our senior defence personnel grieve at least as much, if not more, than we parliamentarians when we lose a member of our armed force. So I don't buy into the rhetoric that somehow there will be some cover-up, but even if you do accept that rhetoric, then my point would be the Defence Force is going to control all the circumstantial evidence about what occurred in a foreign country, such as Afghanistan, that it is no protection against it. Equally so, if we look at the experience of the United Kingdom, it absolutely is clear from the experience of coronial inquiries that you then have in a public forum our defence forces having to disclose what their tactics, what their capabilities of their equipment are in a public forum that is actually contrary to the interests of actually protecting our people who served in the armed forces, actually telling others in other countries what we're able to do and how we operate to try and win conflict is not in the interests of the safety of our brave men and women that serve in our armed forces. The final point I would make in that regard is that this bill proposes that if there are exceptional circumstances, then the Attorney-General is able to have a coronial inquiry. In respect of the issues that were raised by the Green Party about the issues of deaths in the custody of the Corrections Service, what we have now in the law is a blanket requirement for there to be a coronial inquiry over all cases of deaths that occur within our prisons. Actually, there are circumstances in which prisoners die entirely as a consequence of natural causes, and to put the system to the automatic expense of going to a full coronial inquiry is so typical from the Greens, who never face the reality that there are limited resources and we want the resources of the coroner focused on those cases where actually there are the most lessons to be learnt and for us to ensure matters of public safety. In respect of the last issue, and that is in respect of have we got the balance right, in respect of the reporting of suicide, this bill makes a modest allowance for social media and for more open reporting of suicides, while still sticking with the clear scientific evidence that actually there is a risk if suicides are reported inappropriately, that we in fact increase the risks to the wider community. So, Mr. Chairman, in my view, the provisions of this part, as has been appropriately dealt with by the Select Committee with the amendments in the SOP, provides the right advances for the improvements in our coroners' laws in a way that maximises the safety of the public while still ensuring that our coronial system provides the reports where they are needed so that we can learn and prevent deaths in future.
Lewis Award.